numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, a piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized and you're getting on the show. You take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything that we deem that is not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. Also, you can follow our video streaming of this show on our YouTube channel at Vaughn Radio, on our Facebook channel at Vaughn Radio as well. Thank you all, and you go ahead and click subscribe. Tonight, Conrad Naya Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to you, Mr. Stanley, my panelists here, my fellow panelists here this evening. To everyone who is in tune to this program by the various means that's available today, Webbo, I say a pleasant good evening to you. In particular, my friends in Connecticut, Mr. Osborne Liebert, I say good evening to you. Webbo, I'm happy to be here once again discussing the issue that affecting the people, and I do hope at the end of this program we can enlighten the public in some way, or ourselves be enlightened by the calls and the concern that may be expressed by the public. Webbo, I look forward to a very hearty discussion this evening, and thank you once again for having me, Webbo.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis. Those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin. And those viewing audience included. So as we go forward, we are in troubled times. I hope that the success we have had regarding the 13th and 14th victims within our federation who were murdered. Good news so far. We haven't had a trial yet, but we can look forward to the trial, including or hoping we could get a conviction in those trials regarding the murder victims, which means the detection rate has come to a certain point where we could begin to feel a little better based on what we have heard on the news. So as a result, we are hoping that we may not have to implement, as I was saying the last time I was on this program, to come up with another location for people who would bring evidence, or the witness protection program in effect. As one of the panelists mentioned, the seeing of people traveling through the communities with their girlfriends, everybody sees and everybody knows. How come no one sees? But fortunately, seemingly, they've gotten behind bars a few of the suspects who are supposedly, I said supposedly, guardedly, with reference to the two murder victims, 13th and 14th, I believe. So as we go forward, I hope we could upgrade, advance, and utilize whatever system that has brought forth and borne fruit to identify and to have our community involved to the extent where we are beginning to, in fact, get information from our community. Simply, we all live here. We see certain things that go on. The Prime Minister has stated in his address that he would attempt to expand CC cameras, closed circuit cameras in the countryside area, and that not only involves St. Kitts but also in Nevis. So where we are going forward, we have to improve our system, whether it is technological or scientific, as the case might be. So we are making baby steps in the identifying and reporting regarding murder victims, people who might have been present at the scene when these heinous crimes occurred, and therefore they were able to give to the authorities, security authorities, information that would have led to the apprehension. And I hope that we would get a conviction out of these two episodes, sad episodes regarding those two murders. Webbo. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, I'm sure there exists some kind of jubilation because there was a reaction to an action. And I'm sure the public is happy about that. There were times when these things happen and it just seems to go under the table, and the investigation seems to come to an end pretty soon after. But at least there was some reaction, and then of course there are a few who is helping with the investigations, and let's hope that there would be justice would be served. I'm not sure what that means at this point in time, because you are innocent until proven guilty. I don't know who the individuals are, but I was told that there was some reaction to what had happened, and a few are in custody to aid in the investigation. And I'm sure the public is happy. I'm happy about that because too much times we see investigation seems to come to an end before it actually begins. And but I think it's very early days to start talking about this as a real success. And as I say, I'm not here to judge anyone, so let's see what it would be like going forward in terms of gathering information. We still got to be very tight-lipped about this, and of course maybe there are people who need protection. We still don't know. These things backfire sometimes 1, 2, 3 years after, and so we still got to be mindful. There exists a mistrust, certainly, between the people and the police, and that is a fundamental problem as it relates to solving crime. It's important that we try to go beyond that, and that only can happen if you know there are circumstances where information are given and people are not just protected, but people's name and information and source of information are held very, 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 very securely by those to whom these information are given, because I think that's a major, major, major problem. The trust that the public's hold with the police as it relates to securing information and protecting very important information. Anybody you talk to on the street, I mean, yes, we got to work with the police. Everybody think, crime would not go down unless the public work with the police. But the public have a level of skepticism. The public feel like they can easily expose themselves if they do so. So whatever it takes really, maybe some kind of socialization program between the communities and police officers. Another thing we hear in the Federation, and I'm sure it is the same across the Caribbean, because I understand that some police left Nevis to go to St. Lucia and so forth. Most of the cops seems to be foreigners, and some people view that as a problem, because they tend to don't know the community very well, and people don't know them very well unless they go about this orientation program, which I think sometimes is important, because a cop from Dominica or St. Lucia, he or she can easily become orientated in these countries, and you soon don't know the difference whether he or she come from another country. But I think I'm talking about the relationship between the public and the police officers, because if you ask the politicians, all the politicians say the police officers are doing a good job. You ask those in government, you ask those in opposition, are they really speaking the truth, to be honest? Because we got to call a spade a spade. Are we really speaking the truth? I know they will get a backlash if they speak the truth and maybe say things that are not well sounded to the police officers, but sometimes you got to ask about those who are actually carrying out and enforcing the law, and how well they're doing and how well they're not doing, really. There's room for improvement in a big way, and I'm one would like to publicly ask for that. We can't just say the police are just doing their job and all is well. Really, that's not the case. They're doing the job, but we think that they can be more present. We think they can be more responsible for the privacy of information. We think they can be, I suppose, at times even more, appeasing. And in many cases, we're talking about approach to the way the police will approach the public, will approach circumstances and so forth. The police must be our friend, really, if they are to function the way they ought to function. The police must be very close and must be respected in the community. Whether or not the police that we see today act in a manner that they ought to be respected is another question. But I do think so. We don't see much bad things happening around the police in open air situation. But I feel like that trust that the public should have between them and the police, there's a lot of room for improvement. And if that happened, I guess we'll get closer to our objective in terms of seeing a higher detection rate, and the public will start feeling a little more safer. We would see an improvement in what we consider to be a cancer in our society, which is gun violence.
Housing, the representative, my good cousin over in St. Kitts, Jeffrey Hanley, and as he is supposedly the point man to this housing scheme, and I heard a little bit of news regarding some information that is not sounding too correctly, and I'm certain my cousin is a person of integrity, and he would not bring forth a housing scheme that is not admirable, based on what I saw on television, I saw some of the houses, but somewhere along the line, it has been said that the social media may have taken a certain look at the housing scheme, and these people whom the minister has been in communication and in contact with, they have not even built a full coop. I don't believe so, simply because this is something of a certain magnitude which involves St. Kitts Nevis as a country and a Trinidadian developer. And what I gathered from the bit of news on social media, based on how they said Representative Jeffrey Hanley has not done a good job regarding, well, these are not their words, but I don't think that Jeffrey Hanley, the minister in charge of that particular aspect of public housing, which involves some $600 million, would not have taken on something that is nefarious. So I would hope that there will be some additional clarity on the housing scheme, because like I said, I've seen some of the models, at least one of the models, and in that regard, it is the construction application that makes it less expensive. And if they're saying that these people have never built a full coop, something has gone radically wrong in the transmission of information.
Well, Mr. Stanley, you said social media. We know what social media is about. It's really hard to believe that these people who been introduced to the public of St. Kitts and Nevis as developers, and government has gone thus far that the government have not do its due diligence and its own research as to who these people are. I find it difficult to believe that, and
I likewise
have almost signed, contract with them. Well, in a sense, the people seem to have a contract with these people so far, has been introduced to them by the government, that these people, whether or not they have not built a full coop, because that could be very well the case. That could be very well the case, but there must be things that is sufficiently meaningful and influential to the government for them to take all this on board. I mean, it can be, I could be wrong, a company that never really getting started and so forth, so fifth. But I still find it very difficult to believe that, coming to the Federation is their first gesture of development, and they are so well accepted and intertwined with the government, especially in this very specific area of housing. We find a lot of people who never do this and never did that, and they come to these islands, and governments and island administrations tend to be convinced, and they're willing to work with them, but they find out they are not who they really say they are. But in the area of housing, something which is so close to the heart of the people, and so close to the heart of government intentions in terms of providing low-income homes, I would believe that they would have to their own research and know what they're on about. Otherwise, if that's the case, it's huge embarrassment.
Well, like I've said, I've seen a model on television coming from ZIZ television, and the structure is intact. It's a house. So wherever and however they got this bit of information and banded it around in a negative way, I believe somewhere there is a disconnect in terms of communication. And I don't think that the minister would have gone out on a limb to have attempted to bring to the fore this bit of good news embraced by the nation regarding public housing. And as a result, there is some factual truth to the existence of the application, the construction application that we have spoken about here on this program. And like I said, I have seen a model of the physical structure. So my eyes are not fooling me.
Built by who? Physical structure built by who?
Well, based on what I understood from the broadcast, that is one of the models. It was maybe it was a one-bedroom structure, but I know the construction application, which reduces the cost quite dramatically for prospective homeowners. So it's not something in abeyance. It's not something that is abstract, so to speak. It does exist. And like I said, I know the construction application. The non-established workers, they're going to be embraced by the Nevis Island administration with regard to pension. Well, of course, that is not current, but those who are close to retirement age, they will get their pension. They're incorporated, for quite some time. The non-established workers have not been treated as evenly as they should have. But as we go forward and we attempt to have a little more buoyancy in our economy, a little more cash flow, the government has seen it fit to bring them under the umbrella of the retirement system. But I hope that they will benefit handsomely from this inclusion in the benefit scheme regarding retirement. Now, I do not know if you have you attained, well, no, let me not ask you that question. But I get Social Security currently. And we were supposed to have received a bonus from the passport funds. And I waited. Did
you fill the form?
I don't want to fill a form. The Prime Minister made mention of it.
You got to fill a form, Mr. Stanley.
Listen, I've been in contact with Social Security after waiting months after month, and have not seen that check. Small, but yet it comes in handy. So I went to Social Security and I more or less asked, what's going on? You already got all my information. It's just that I never signed up for direct deposit, which means I won't sign up for it simply because I want to feel the check in my hand and to ensure that I'm in control of it coming from Social Security. So I did not sign up for direct deposit. At the same time, they have all my information, yet it's been quite some time, but the Prime Minister mentioned about the people who are Social Security recipient would receive their bonus check. And I have not received mine, and as a result, I went to Social Security and lodged a complaint that I have not received mine and I need it. So they promised that I will get it. At the same time, they've got all my information.
Well, I don't know.
So I called him yesterday and asked what's the hold up. And they're still attempting to give me touch around. But I'm hoping that by the 25th I could really put my hand on it. So yeah.
Interesting. No, I went to the building for some other reason, and I asked about it, and I was given a form to fill, but no, I didn't. I really can't be bothered, to be quite honest, and I move along.
If you're not at retirement age, I could understand they're giving you a form.
Okay, I suppose.
All right.
I suppose that's the case, yeah.
But they have all my information, and they've got the system in place. But I was told they are attempting to do those who are signed up for automatic transmittal, automatic deposit. So what happened to the technology? They have abandoned technology?
Go easy and Social Security, because, you know, don't...
Look,
I understand, but we would like to see the scheme happening for the people in generation to come. Don't go too hard on them right now.
I'm not Warren Buffett, you know. Let me make that clear. so I need what I have contributed to receive my monthly, and if there is an additional bonus, let me please have it. Please let me have it. The big episode on the media is the Donald Trump fiasco. And I cannot understand how this beast thinks he can get away with it. He actually kept national security of the United States information.
He and Biden.
Well, no, Biden's situation is completely different. He opposed, he stalled, and he has done everything to, in fact, keep those stolen documents in his possession, with the hope, in my view, to impress foreigners, foreign countries, what he has, what he took when he lost the presidency.
I can't.
The evidence is there.
It's a little uncomfortable to believe. To impress.
Right. Look, have you, well, no, let me not bring you and personalize it. There are people who just got certain things in their possession, and they attempt to show off simply because you don't have it, but I got it, and let me show you the evidence. And don't you think he has gone to the nth degree?
So why did Biden was found with such documents also?
What they found with Biden, and I'm not trying to protect Biden, is his 36 years of being a senator. And he has turned them over. Once they were found, he has turned them over to, I think, the University of Delaware. He didn't give any trouble. But Trump, who believes he's above the law, feels he can do anything, can go down into the street of Manhattan and shoot somebody and nobody would bat an eyelid. Why does he think so? You can't just go down Manhattan, shoot somebody and think you can get away with it. And over and over and over, we see the character of Donald Trump, who was never qualified to become President of the United States. But for whatever reason, he has a following, and he has lied to his following, or to his followers, and they have swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, to the extent we had January 6th insurrection, meaning he actually riled up the crowd.
Yes, but Mr. Stanley, there are decent people in the Republican Party.
Well, I know that.
So why is it Donald Trump is so much ahead of them in the polls? There are decent people in the Republican Party.
Look,
who have a viewpoint, and the American public has a viewpoint also. Do you think that all that's happening with Donald today can really work to his advantage?
I think.
Don't you think that all that's happening can kind of put on a cloak of
Invincibility?
Not instability, but it can turn all this into success in the polls?
Look, we are people, and we are guided by what we accept. And if you accept something that is not the truth, but you cannot understand that it is not the truth, you will be guided by it, and you will act upon it in whatever way you are asked to act upon it. So his take is that I got control of the Republican Party. I have a following that gives me the platform, the foundation, and probably the firepower to actually influence these people's thinking. As a result, we have seen it played out in January 6th, the insurrection of January 6th. That was a terrible thing for the United States. Luckily, the United States has a certain amount of guardrails. You got the FBI, you got the rule of law, you've got the Constitution, you've got other institutions that Donald Trump tries to demolish to his advantage.
I find this to be, in a big way, a political witch hunt, Mr. Stanley. I don't think the game is being played evenly across the board as it relates to those high-profile documents And I think mainstream media, which for years they're against Donald Trump for whatever reason, and again, they might be the ones who really push that balloon of air under him and really elevate him back to the presidency of the U.S. I've seen a lot of people trying to take a bite at him now. Even Vice President Pence. I think one of them introduced himself last night. What's his name? Big guy. Say he's 60 years old. Look more like 80. And he criticized the age of both Trump and Biden. But saying really nothing. So I think you guys have a big fight on your hands still, even though all this thing is happening with Donald. I honestly believe that it's very much politically driven. And I believe the American public knows that too. Where you go out there and really go into the corners, the highs and lows of the law, and the exaggeration at times of evidence, and basically trying to bring down Donald Trump. That might backfire on the American public, because the American public is still searching. They're still searching for that leader. Which leader, I don't know. Biden's a low in the poll. Low in the polls. And it is plain to see that the American public is still searching. And that's why, as bad as Donald Trump is, he still occupies a segment of their brain, of their mind. He's still a player, big player, political player in the U.S. today.
To be honest, the fellow who is former governor of New Jersey, I can't think, Chris Christie.
Yeah, he was there.
Him and Donald Trump were very close. And I still believe they're still close. But he's one of those who's going to challenge Donald Trump and feels that he could truthfully loser. Donald Trump has lost, let me see for sure, the last election big time. And he lied to his supporters and was able to get into their minds for them to lie. There was a guy who came on and he was told by Donald, I will support you if you will attempt to expand or concretize the big lie. I mean, these weren't his words, but the fellow...
let me get this for you. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. I think it's absolutely right to say that there is some degree of a witch hunt in this indictment of Donald Trump, right? I think he is in fact uniquely unqualified to be president of the United States again. All right, I think he was the first time. I think he is, based on what he has done, he is as well the second time around. I think this is a case, though, of getting him on the small stuff and leaving the big stuff, which is perhaps more controversial, out of the picture. The big stuff being what happened on January 6th. I do believe, though, as was said, there may be a backlash from some elements in the state. they are indeed searching for, I think, some kind of leadership. Biden apparently is not it, even though he seemed to have been very successful, certainly in terms of the economy. Still, there's something about him, I think, the American voter doesn't like. Maybe he's not appealing, he's not the kind of leader that they really gravitate towards, effective though he may have been. I think what might be most appealing about Donald Trump is the fact that he is going to come down hard with his policies, right? He'll be all great. And some of these policies might not necessarily be popular with certain elements in America, like, for instance, the war in Ukraine, right? I get the impression that he feels that this was a war America should not have been involved in, right? And so he'd probably be less muscular with that. There also may be less inclination towards Europe, popping up Europe. They'll probably be on their own, and he'll definitely be looking at America first. You know, however that take his policies. So the end result is I don't see anybody on the horizon really who can replace either Biden or Trump, and so he's going to make for a very interesting election year next year as to who will triumph. You know, but the thought of Donald Trump getting back into power again, I don't know. I think that's what they're trying to avoid at all costs. Even with this, what I would consider almost, well, not trivial, but, you know, a misdemeanor more than anything else. You know, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with in the court. If he can actually beat this, you know, I don't know. I think there are power structures in America which go beyond what we see on the surface, and they tend to eliminate those who they don't think should be, whether be president or whole reins of power. They tend to get eliminated one way or the other. And I'm not into conspiracy theories, but from my observation, that has always been the case. I think Donald Trump might be a victim of that. Okay, then.
Well, Bill Barr, who was his Attorney General, has said he's toast. That means he's finished. And based on what has transpired so far, they don't think, I'm talking about the Justice Department, doesn't feel that even January 6th was not potent enough, but national security, the national security of the United States of America is paramount, and consequently, Donald Trump, if the people are wise, or if they wise up, they will not be able to give him that armor of the presidency again, because that is what he is seeking to get, the armor of the presidency, where he can quash this investigation and this indictment. But the clock is ticking, and on the one hand, or on the one track, you got the timetable of getting a conviction of Donald Trump before the election, and on the other track, Donald Trump is hoping that he could get to the White House before his conviction. If he's convicted, he's toast. If he's elected, the United States of America would have lost big time, simply because he now has the power of the presidency and can quash this investigation and could do anything he feels, because again, one of the things he wants to do is to tear up the Constitution. The Constitution is the framework, the backbone, the legal document that governs the United States of America, that brings about certain guardrails. The FBI, the Department of Justice, the police, and the whole 9 yards. So when you look at it, he is attempting to see how he could beat.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yeah, good night. I want to ask Stanley if you know where British American originated from. The home of British American.
British American is an insurance company that I believe might have been incorporated under the laws of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
and as a result, it is a nice ring, nice tone.
Yeah, and
naming it British American.
The housing people them come from Trinidad, right?
That is correct.
Well, why they don't settle British American debt first before they move into something else? I wonder if the no government remember what British American did to us and still owe us a lot of money. And nobody's saying nothing. Nobody's saying nothing about it, you know? A lot of people, if they're broke and all kind of things, we want with money, and they're going to sign a contract and ask them a little question about the money what they owe us. Trinidad, I tell you, playing your small island and all kind of thing, and they got all kind of high building up there, right? All kind of condominium and all kind of thing, and we can't get one yet, and we poor. So you can say when they want money, they just come around and cherry pick us and all kind of thing. Then people got to pay up their debt, man. We should do business with them. This them never honor their debt. When a man don't honor his debt, you're not supposed to do business with him. Thank you.
You brought in the equation apples and oranges. And in this regard, you have what is known as an insurance policy. And that is part of the private sector of Trinidad and Tobago, British American, an insurance company, and which has some of its products geared toward savings account. You buy a life insurance policy, it has cash value over a period of time. It generates cash value over a period of time. With the housing, physically, you are getting something that would be built, structured, and continue to take its place on a certain square footage of land. That is something that is what is known as tangible. The insurance policy, on the other hand, is intangible. So this is one of the reasons why I label it apples and oranges, and therefore the private sector of Trinidad cannot be held liable for something that one company did and punish it, and would punish the other company simply because they want to come in.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, I'm not so sure that the British American debacle and this new proposal is really apples and oranges, you know. The fact is, based on past experience, we should in fact be looking very carefully at the business dealings that we get in with companies from Trinidad, right? Because it's not, I mean, there are other instances where deals have gone badly. I mean, if I'm not wrong, I think the La Valley thing also involved banking a bank from Trinidad as well. You know, and in the case of British American, the government of Trinidad is who actually got involved in it, and there is no settlement. Okay, so much so that the government of Trinidad and Tobago is being taken to court, to the CCJ, all right, to try to settle the matter. All right, and I think the caller was right in saying that because we're small, we should be very careful about how we do business on the regional scene. I mean, we can talk about, for instance, what the Antigua government did with the money that National Bank apparently sent there to shore up another bank in Antigua. We can look at the cancellation of Liat debt, for instance, so we got nothing back for it. All these are things which it gives the impression that we were taken advantage of, and I don't think that should continue. I think the government should look very carefully at, well, they should always be looking carefully at whatever deals, business and otherwise, they get involved in with foreigners, whether private or public. But I wouldn't just rule it off as, because we're getting something tangible for it. I'm yet to see. I'm not, since we're going to be paying, people are going to be paying for the houses, for instance. How is I think it's close to $700 million. It's not money. I don't know if it's money that's going to be provided up front for the building, or it's going to be done in stages so that as we pay in to the bank or the financial institutions here, the financial institutions essentially take over the mortgage and give the investor the money, and so we now still have to pay the bank. You know, it's one of those very I wouldn't say suspect, but quirky kinds of foreign investment, where it's not a case where like somebody build a hotel and foreigners come in and use the hotel and bring in foreign exchange. It's a case of they come in and we in the islands pay for them to recoup their money, if you see what I mean. Something akin to that Lequantia deal that we had here in St. Kitts, where the Swiss company was going to come in, put in money to invest money in the solar farm, but we are the ones who will be paying for the electricity, and that is how they expect to get back their money. Right? It's one of those strange foreign, we call it foreign investment, but it ends up basically repaying. So I think we should be very careful with these like these. All right.
Caller, I was listening to Mr. Stanley very acutely, but I think you addressed the question that I was going to ask him, because I thought that the caller made a very important point as well. and to hear Mr. Stanley classify it under apples and oranges, I was going to put forth that there may be apples and oranges, but they come under the heading of fruits. And so therefore I think that the caller, was making a good point. But I in listening to you, to me, you basically made a case that the caller made.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That you should be very careful with it. I'm not saying that. Of course, it's a good thing if they fulfill all the obligations and everything. The contract goes smoothly, and we end up with 2,400 units, right? But I think we're yet to see it play out. I mean, we've had housing schemes again from Trinidad that has ended up with the government having to take them over and those sorts of things, right? So you have to be I think we should be, the point is we should be very careful. Don't just rush into something that sounds nice and rosy simply because somebody is prepared to finance it. It is concerning that the people who are involved have not had a track record in this.
And the British American thing, I think we're either in denial of it or something, but we fail to put forth the impact in terms of finance that it's had on the islands and the Caribbean.
Yeah.
It's a vexing thing, but
disappeared from overnight from the islands and several islands and a lot of people. And the thing is, the government seemed powerless to do anything about it. That was the thing. Normally, you'd think that the government, bear in mind the extent of that debacle, that the governments would have gotten together and tried to do something about it. But they were unable to persuade Trinidad to do anything.
Well, as you said, maybe they didn't have the will, but I like what Guyana did. What happened was, sometime after, the same company under a different heading went into Guyana to restart something, or to start up something. And the Guyana government told them, no, you got to settle this other thing first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it comes down, in my view, to representation and who and why. Because sometimes there are reasons why people don't do certain things, But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
right?
but the point that the caller made is a clear, very crystal clear, that notwithstanding or irrespective of what the leaders may think or say, the masses and the ordinary people in the Caribbean are feeling it and responding to it, and it has caused a great impact on the financial situation in the Caribbean and the confidence, and economies are driven by confidence. The confidence people have in the financial system.
It can't happen again. As far as I know, the central bank now regulate things like insurance companies to make sure that their products are, there is at least some protection for the client from unnecessary risk. I mean, do you know if that actually changed the system?
Now, the problem you have with those things is this. I'm speaking in general, that some people are not adept enough to understand that a fellow comes and he breaks into your business place via a window. And so you make sure that all the windows are intact, you change them and stuff like that, right? Because you assume that the next time he comes back, he's going to come back to the window.
Yeah.
He has the same intent, which is to break in, but he may not use the same method.
The same method, yeah. And the thing is,
it boggles my mind sometimes how people can't get it.
Well, the thing is, right, a lot of people in the region were made to feel that they did something wrong because they put money in a product with with huge returns, unrealistic returns, right? But this was in too many islands and done by too many ordinary people for the governments to be looking at it as if, well, it's your fault. You made a bad investment, and that's it. You know, they were made to feel that they did something wrong, when in fact the government should have been regulated. Some kind of regulation should have been going on to prevent this from happening, right? And like I said, is there something that can prevent it from happening again? And that's why I'm saying, whether it's this deal, this new housing deal, or any other kind of deal, it should be thoroughly scrutinized to make sure that things don't go south.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let me attempt to defend myself. Well, there are times you hear something, and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Those people who are acquainted with that phrase, if they understand the true meaning of that phrase, they will be just like the born child who dreads fire. I was asked by a few friends about the same British-American deal, and I told them, don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And they followed my advice. They took my advice. Another portion of it is that people again follow their own instinct, and no matter what you try to tell them, they still blindly go along with their own instincts. Now, I categorize that apples and oranges simply because one, you got a physical structure that was going to be put down. We can see that physical structure. We look at the construction application. Depending on how they actually do the physical structure, you can make a determination as to whether or not it can withstand a certain degree of hurricane power, hurricane force. Now, when I came back here some years ago, I came with a couple of shillings, and I inquired if they have FDIC, which means Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, here. I was told no. So I said, well, get wise and put it in place so that what I deposit would be insured, and I could get back my money if this institution goes under. Well, it took them some time. I believe currently we have a semblance of FDIC in Nevis and St. Kitts. But if we are not up to speed, if we are not well trained, and we are not well versed in international commerce, we get taken. And just like not only by Trinidadians, Barbadians, we get taken by our own people. If you are not wise enough, you'll be sold a bale of goods that are worthless. So my advice to those people, sure, our government has a responsibility to protect us. But if our government doesn't have the right personnel, trained personnel in place to understand the nuances as to, like I mentioned, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. People reached out at me, to me, if whichever you want to use, and asked for my advice, and I gave them. You got people who had come to my place for the stock market training. I held a few sessions up there. They're impressed. They see big money. But I said to them, this is not a game for the faint-hearted. As a result, put only what you can afford to lose into the market. So you have to have people with the right aptitude, with the right training, right knowledge to give advice, and people must take that advice and take it seriously and implement it.
So you preface that episode just now by saying let you basically make your case. Correct?
True.
You think you just did?
Listen, maybe not to you, but I'm certain.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, it's me again, right? I had a contract with British American to build a building for them, right? And then after I find out that nothing coming, I had to write them and ask them what going on. And I invest a couple of dollars in it too. And they wrote me back and told me that, well, at this time they find difficulty. They say the world economy in a downtown and they find it difficult to carry on the project. So they start to immediately check and it's within 6 months they don't permit. The contract I had with them. And the thing about really bothers me is when we OTDC and Oxford and so on, because they left me in a lot of debt and alcohol, I don't know who I lift up the head. When we OTDC and Oxford and so on, we got to come and meet them with the money. And well, I was in Barbados and I put the matter to somebody. Right? And they said the government holds some building up for British American. The way our government couldn't find out what's going on. We did that where they are the builder here and tell them they can sell the building unless they pay the man. So, I really feel down. I mean, man, pay the taxes and all kind of thing, and when representation comes, time come, nobody will represent you. So, they give people a down spirit and all kind of thing. Okay, thanks.
Yes, all right.
When the caller...
Let me just get a quick break and then we will be right back. This is Talk That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liber. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after these.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results with Conrad Nye Liber, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We're going to get back. I think, Naya, I interrupted you. I'm going to come back to you. But let me just mention quickly something. I think last week and the week before, we had mentioned something about the water. You all remember that?
Yes.
Right. And Mr. Brand, who is the minister responsible for water in the Nevital administration. And you remember that leak up Westbury that I spoke about. So what happened was that the water department went and checked out the leak, right? And then I passed there and I saw, where they dug out the earth and stuff like that. And then, so I said, well, that's good. So I saw Mr. Brandon and I said, well, you look like you did thought I'd get results because the thing is fixed. The next day, though, I saw water in the hole, right? So I said to the fellows of the water department, because I saw them on the road, they were repairing some other area, and I said, you guys did fix the thing, but it started leaking again. Fellow said to me, boy, Webbo, that's water coming out of the people's place. When I checked it out, I found out that it was wastewater coming from somebody's shower. But it just happens that it comes out right where the water meter is. So, I must say to the water department, well, at least we saw something, you did go and check it out, and then at the end of the day, we found out what it is.
Yes.
The problem we're going to end up with, though, is that water coming out all the time and coming into the street, guess what the other problem is causing?
Digging out
the roads. So that's something else. If you want the community to be concerned and information, you got to address it with respect, and so we got to say kudos to the water department. They checked it out.
Yeah.
There's another problem, seemingly. Let's see whether or not that can get addressed. Now, I hastily add that people must understand that everything has a reaction and everything is conditional. When you do things, you gotta get guts and courage, because people who are involved, some people will spite you, right? So you pay a cost for it. You gotta decide whether or not it's worth it. Yes, Stanley.
Yes, Webbo, like I said, there are times you have to go to the source to get the right information and to take precautionary measures so that you can ameliorate or avoid certain problems. Now, the caller, I understand his pain.
No, I thought you were commenting on that thing with the water. Because
No.
Work with me.
You explain it?
Work with me. I promised to go back to Naya.
Okay.
Right? So, but before that, I had one other thing to make. It's a serious matter, but it's a light moment, and I'll pay anything for a light moment any day. Because just before I come in here, looking at the news, and there was a 76-year-old woman who died, well, allegedly died, was in a casket, and when then they heard this knocking from inside the casket. The lady was alive, was in a coma, woke up, and so on. So that's an interesting story in the international news, but they say they're making investigation. What a situation it would be if if we go to a funeral. And what? So you want to finish what I'm saying?
No, I'll come up after you.
Okay, go ahead.
I go to many funerals, all right? And I always hoped that I could see the person lying in that casket come back alive. You know, my dear wife, Shirlene, she passed suddenly. And boy, I went to the church and asked God to do what he has done for Lazarus. For me, please, Master. But to no avail. My wife is gone. I miss her dearly. But what he's brought to the fore, I actually hoped many times I'm at funerals and would like to see a person who they have claimed to be dead to spring back alive. Sadly, it has not happened. But miracles do happen. Miracles do happen. Because there was a lady from the United States who went to, I guess, I had mentioned the name earlier, to one of the South American countries. and she got thrown from the raft that she was riding on one of these rapid rivers, and she was submerged for over 7 minutes, and miraculously she came back. She survived it. Nobody can hold your breath for that length of time submerged underwater. But the Lord knows who He would spring a miracle onto. As a result, there are periodic miracles. So, Webbo, I am always hoping that the person who's in that casket can spring back alive. But I say, they've been in a morgue. It might be a refrigerated morgue or a freezer, so they can't come back. But strangely and miraculously, we heard in the news today, this lady came back. But how did she come back? She's alive. They had to take her back to the hospital. But was she in a morgue, a freezer? We didn't get all the details. But she's alive. Miraculously. Webbo.
Okay, so Naya, go ahead, please.
No, but I just wanted to make the point that the caller called twice, but the second time he called, I think he made the point that he was trying to make with the first call when Stanley said that he was mixing up apple and oranges. To me, the caller is crying out for representation with the first call. I mean, he puts those two companies together because they are from Trinidad. And he's basically saying we are here ready to do business with another Trinidad company when they have a Trinidad company that so many people across the Caribbean. And to me, what he's talking about is basically he's crying out for representation because he knows that the government is signing contract with a Trinidad company, and he's basically, well, how come they're doing that and we have been hurt by a Trinidad company? He's been actually, wanting representation on the matter. And the second time he called, I think he made the point that in Barbados such things was done and the government act on behalf of the people, and he's wondering why the government here is not acting on behalf of the people who's been hurt by British American. And so I just wanted to make that point, Webbo. It can be seen as apple and oranges, but it comes together when it comes to somebody who is feeling great pain being brought by a company from Trinidad, and he just thinks that our Trinidad company now must be looked at in a certain way and can be scrutinized.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hello, good night.
Thank you for holding.
Yes, good night, Webbo. How are you? I was everybody in the panel. Good night to you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, with this Trinidad thing, you know much Fridays people used to be there making noise with the busman. So, when they don't work to get their money, I don't know they linking up with these people, but we got people here think his name is got road of man. I don't know, going through these people here, don't know. God is smart also, what they say they put in them. You just put down some perimeter, put the steel in it, frame it up and then pour the concrete around it. But they don't do that, nobody listen to me. It's a woman and me know that. So I don't really know what's going on, you hear? They just want to just put enough money. They want the councillor, they send away. They're crazy when you look down to them house and the ones. They'll give them, pay them. Oh my gosh, you know that one, make sure people don't want to ever think it's people about so then and even people send the money here and this the government not find this money to give people. Advisor for the look for somebody here, people intelligent, Webbo, Mr. Herbert, everybody. Eh? What happened to these people here? We just want to call friendly. Money ain't on a friend, you know? Can't trust I need to collect to this thing money, and I don't know why they don't let the money stay in the country. They want to say no good contractor here could let all out them thing. I see them lay them out here already. Road cross come through, they're going to the west. So I don't know really what happening here. And come back alive, that could happen if you go on away from yourself, because in the COVID 2021 it was with a Jamaica lady. I don't know if she had her children and they live up there in the state, you know. When they come in, I had a woman zip up. When you look, they see the mother and mom. Said, no, my mother ended, I open up the thing. And so she gets back to herself. So this song by real life, let's be real. It's a true song. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Listen up here.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I can't say much about this coming back alive thing. You know, I hear it has happened in Africa. One time, I think some ministers came here, and they had a church in town, and that's one of the things they said right here at this desk, that they have brought back people alive in Africa.
I believe that.
Well, that's what they said.
Yeah, but it's two different things. I got you. What they said, I got that.
And,
but the question I asked, if you believe.
Oh, not at all, Webbo,
okay.
Not at all.
No, check
the science, you know, there's science, and scientists can prove a lot of things. You can't be dead and come back alive, basically.
Because it seems as if we head into a light moment. Because a fella came here about 2-3 years ago, interviewed him, and he think he was a professor, and he told me that they're going to have a big hurricane in January.
I remember.
I asked him who told him that. He said the Lord told him that. I said, really? He said yes. And then he went on to tell me how he does talk to the Lord and thing. I said, really? And I said, so how he does? He said, like how me and you talking? I said, yeah. And he said, yeah. He said sometimes when the Lord talking to him, he have to tell him hold on, because he talks so fast. He got to get a pen and write quick, you know. So anyway, I suppose he knew he wasn't going to be here in January for me to ask him where's the hurricane. So you have that things that happen sometimes, you know. Sometimes people, I swear, just seek me out to tell me something. Anyway. Right, so back to where we were with the point with the British American. I was making the point that the economy is based on confidence, consumer confidence. And when you have a country operating and the citizens or the people who live in that country don't have the confidence of making investment and taking on risk and stuff like that and so on, that is where the economy doesn't do well. So you have now people where the finances are concerned are nervous about companies or billing and stuff like that, because they might run away with their monies and stuff like that. It hurts the overall society, and that is where the government now has to come in, put certain things in place, and give the persons, the consumers, the confidence that they can go ahead, because perchance something nefarious happens, they have something in place to protect them. So from that experience then, you must A, try to rehabilitate or recover, and B, give people the confidence going forward. And it's not good enough to just think that by some fancy talk you bluff people, because if you listen to the ordinary people, they have a different concept of the conclusion of this British American fiasco than what maybe some of the authorities may have. Because sometimes we think that we do a good talk and fool people, but we don't. I mean, we do the good talk, but to whether or not you have actually fooled people or convinced them is another story. So, Mr. Stanley, this apples and oranges thing, I would agree with you, but I put them under the heading of fruits. So it end up to be the same thing.
Well, Webbo, that's your concept of apples and oranges, they're fruits.
You don't agree?
On the one hand, yes, but when we, in the context of the two factors that the fellow brought to the fore, I am saying one is physical, where the structure will be put down. However, the arrangement in terms of finances, whether it's going to be upfront money coming from the builder or the developer, or
if I walk in for you and the contract is $500,000, you pay me by cash. You paid me?
yes,
You paid me by check. You paid me?
it's a promissory note until you get to the bank.
Right, but you paid me.
Yes,
And if it's a check, and then if it's cash, you paid me.
that is correct.
Okay. We can add and subtract a lot of other things, but there are different ways of getting it done. You agree with that?
Yes,
But it was done.
it was done.
Good. So whether you're doing business that involves services or business that involve goods, you operate in business. You agree with that?
That is correct.
Okay. So to now come and tell me that one is houses and one you can actually see, and one was a basically a service which that's the point that I'm making. Neither did I make my case. You're my
You
Ted.
have made your case, sir.
Well,
I
listen,
don't know what I would do without Ted Hampson, so I use a substitute. So I made a case.
You have made your case, sir.
Okay.
You have made your case.
we understand
Very well.
the economy and their services and their goods, how you want to put them, but they're in different buckets, different categories. So if it is a service, you charge for the service. If it is goods sold for a transactional arrangement, but they're into two different categories. So maybe I'm missing something.
You're missing a lot.
But what I'm trying to tell you, what I understand you're trying to say is that one is a service, one is a transaction regarding goods. Still, you got to pay for the service, whether you want to build something for somebody and charge them for your service, or you're going to sell somebody a bale of goods and charge them for the goods.
So you finally get it.
It's not rocket science.
Okay. So I was able to convince you then.
You didn't have to
Finally.
convince me about that.
So you knew.
I knew.
Okay. You
Hello?
just decided. Walk with me. So you just decided to disconnect us for a while.
No, when you get disconnected, it's because you're not following. And you got to listen attentively. I mean, you've been trained to listen attentively. That's why you're here running a station. I mean, for 35 years. And you have learned very well. You're a fast learner. So you're here. And you've been performing. And you have to listen well.
You know, Edric, you're just the best. And only the best will do. Okay. What else? What else we got?
The cultural festival is coming up fast, and it was in the news, and based on what I've been hearing, it seems as though we're going to have a very nice Culturama festival this year. So we look forward to the presentations of all the contestants and the participation of the public regarding regarding cultural presentations, and therefore we can give a lot of compliments to those people who are involved to keep the festival going upward and onward, and to, in fact, improve on what has been created by our people, Calvin Cabo Howell, Alma Johnson, and the other ladies.
Richards, a lot of them. Well, Culturama it's a product, you know. It's our product.
Yeah.
It's a major product for us.
Creative.
It's supposed to be a creative product. It's an annual festival here in Nevis. It's really something that we should look forward to with more enthusiasm, I think. I was just thinking, as you say, Culturama is coming, but I'm not hearing no band practicing, no steel band practicing. You know, these are the things that reaches my mind when we are approaching a festive occasion, when we are preparing for our summer festival. You know, a lot of preparation, you know, because people are all excited about it. But do we have that excitement, really? You know, somehow I could be wrong, but somehow I think it's missing, and it needs a stirring up. It almost needs a revolution within the whole thing, you know. And people don't get taken away by the word revolution, like, you know, a bad thing. But we all like a shaking up of this local festival, this Culturama festival, that we can just look at it with more enthusiasm and expectation, you know. It's a great festival, but it looks to me the Kittitian take it on in a serious way. They come to Nevis for the festival, and they themselves sometimes want to tell us without them coming over, our festival is not lively. So yes, people's participation, not just people who talk, you know, like I do sometimes, you know, even me myself, I suppose. I suppose from the microphone radio I can encourage participation. I can try and lift the spirit of the people going forward, looking towards a good time here in Nevis. There's musical festival this month in St. Kitts, and that's been covering the airwaves.
Niall, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. I wanted to tell Niall that the band is practicing the calypso even tonight.
Beautiful.
Right now.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. That's what I want to hear. You know, the band is practicing the calypso, and the steel band them is making noise, practicing the barnyard them. You know, and there's this excitement. You know, it comes from all of us. It comes from the radio stations. It comes from, you know, everyone, I suppose. We talk more about it, and because sometimes I think it's and it could be me. Maybe even within myself, I need to probably get more excited about it. You know what I mean? But yes, I want to invite everybody here to Nevis. Culturama is our festival. There's something that called the National Carnival, that is the St. Kitts Carnival in St. Kitts. And so I refer to Culturama as our local festival, national to us here in Nevis. and it's what we present to the world. It's a reflection of our standards also, and so I want people to get involved and be excited about it, and government put in money, and at the end of the day, you know, we are happy that we had a beautiful festival. I hope it's not too permeated by politics and division, you know. An all-inclusive festival, and those who have the opportunity to speak to mics, and like I do here, to encourage this oneness in the Culturama Festival. Let's try and make it, you know, exciting again, because to me it used to be a lot more excitement. I want to see a lot more drama, a dramatic presentation in Nevis. You know, we have a nice place down there that is built for that. And I would like to see the people who work in culture, who earn so much money every month and so forth, participate wholesomely, give them a whole night for themselves, and throughout the Culturama, let's see them involved, you know, and the youths who they are training to play drums and masquerade, you know. I believe we need really a renaissance in this Culturama thing. It's a beautiful festival, and it's very unique. It's very unique, because nowhere across the Caribbean our Culturama that reflects our culture. But I think people are saying it's drifting away now into a different kind of thing, where maybe it's a beauty contest and you know, and a kind of thing going on in the street and so forth. Whatever it is, it's our festival. However, it's growing and developing. It's our festival, and the bottom line is we should look forward to it. It should be an exciting time, you know, for Nevisians home and abroad, because I know Nevisians are foreign look towards it, maybe a lot more than Nevisians here. But we must create that buzz. We must create that buzz, and even before the festival, we should have things leading up to the festival. You know, I would encourage a lot of village competitions and so forth. Maybe village competition in the Queen Show, maybe in the Calypso, so that at the end of all this, we can have a pool of people kind of accustomed to the stage, and we can have an optimized group that's going to perform on that night. Maybe, you know, out of village competitions, we arrive at the best 6 or 7 people. Just a little more excitement in the place, you know, and I think it's for us to do, not just during Culturama time, but throughout the year, and it all culminates, you know, in this big thing that calls Culturama. Yes.
Let me get a break. Back with our remaining minutes right after this.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
Sugar City, St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Back with our remaining minutes on this episode of Talk That Get Results. You know, I wanted to mention, as we were talking about culture and history and so on and so forth, we had promised over the years, you know, when we have an anniversary, one of the things that we do some flashback programming, and we had promised over the years to expand what we play back, because you know, in terms of educating and information and stuff like that. I was looking at a tape that this one was actually a videotape, and we're going to do some of that on and so you can end up on our YouTube and Facebook pages and stuff like that, because, you know, we're basically mostly audio. And I wondered how many people knew that Henry Brown, Dr. Brown, Stokumba, the lawyer, a few moons ago he had a political party, and we had an interview with him. I was looking at it where he was introducing all of his candidates who was running in constituency number 1 through to 8.
What's UNEP?
UNEP, yes. And, you know, he was talking about his plans and his programs, and, you know, he was running obviously against the Labour Party and the PAM at the time. And then it's interesting to see what happened after that election and going forward. And interestingly enough, we also have a tape where there was an interview with the late Premier Vance Amory and former Deputy Premier Henry Daniel. I didn't even remember we actually had that debate with both of them together. So we actually have a recording of that. So a number of things that we're going to replay for the some people to refresh, and also you know, people who do not know, because some of these were 20 years ago, even as Edric said, 30-something years ago. Some of the youngsters were not even around. But it's important to know your history. And for those who, some of them nefariously, you know, saying that there were never debates among the leaders, we have those as well. Dr. Douglas and Dr. Simmons and what's his name? Michael Powell, Mr. Powell as well, and stuff like that, and individual, you know, interviews with us. So and it's interesting too what they said then as opposed to the now and stuff like that. So very important stuff. Also, I want to find the interview when Naya launched his party, because a lot of persons didn't know that Naya ran. What's his name again? What your party was, Naya?
The Working People Alliance.
The Working People Alliance. See, I didn't even know that. All I know that your slogan was Naya for good government, and your campaign manager was Della. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, and I'd like to find when Edric launched too. Well, Edric, you know, Edric ran St. John's People's Party. I was telling persons that Edric, people argue, was the one, some people call it the spoiler, but Edric was the one, some people argue, that caused that government change in 1992. When Edric ran the St. John's People's Party. Edric, remember that?
Oh, sure.
You remember who your manager was of your campaign?
Well, he was minimum manager, but at the same time, he may have taken that position. But
who is the he you're talking about?
Bingy.
And who else was on that team?
A few other people.
Lately, I understand Astro was a part of it too. That's correct.
No,
Astro wasn't there. No. So, but Bingy was the manager.
Well, like I said, he might have given himself that title.
But what title did you give him?
I didn't give him a title.
So he was just working with you?
Yeah,
and
but he never worked with me.
He worked.
He worked against me. I mean, truth be told, he worked against me. And I didn't know he was a mole planted by the NRP. You understand me?
Which the party that you ran with later on.
Right.
And then throw you overboard.
Right.
And you had to swim.
Quite so.
Now, you just have to start up Edric, and then he gets passionate with those stories. So continue, Edric. So what you said, you had to swim?
Quite so. Quite so.
And Bingy was not your manager, because Bingy told me he was your campaign manager.
Well, that's what he would do. But at the same time, did he also tell you what he did?
He told me he did a good job.
When I found out he was a mole planted in my campaign, was planted by Berlin and maybe the other fellow. What's his name?
So in other words, as you always determined to use, they were able to hoodwink you then?
Well, like I said, in this game of life, if you don't watch out, you get hoodwinked nearly every day. Because people are always out there to
And then
make you and bring you down.
And then when the campaign and everything was over, you thank everybody else except your campaign manager.
No, I thank everybody and
except him.
No, they all got. We had entertainment, food and drink, right up at the little place there in church ground, because I had a bar and supposedly a restaurant from which everybody got entertained. But
you once give the reason why you enter politics. What was that again, Sister?
Well, my thing was to serve people, always to serve people, and I've been good to people. I've reached out to a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people. Well, right now, they're trying to bring me down, but at the same time, God shares, because the fence down at the waterfront has been completely, not partially dismantled.
Yeah, that's right.
Why? And I know at the same time, I looked at the tape, and a truck went in.
The camera, the CC camera?
Yeah, the truck went in.
Well, how come, Mr. Stanley, you can find things on the CC camera and
broke the fence?
People who doing this crime and so forth who's looking
broke
at
the fence, went in, broke the fence and came back out, and then went back in and came back out and pulled a large portion of the fence down Main Street.
Along with it?
Yeah. But another portion of the fence was taken out later on or about the 27th, between the 27th of May and the 31st of May. That portion of the footage I have to look at.
But
I went to the police department today, but the person who supposedly organized it wasn't there. But same time,
you just sell the land at a reduced price and get rid of the problem.
That is not part of my DNA.
What's the problem? People pulling down your fence down there
No.
front and driving along with your fence on Main Street and all
No. Then they would have actually succeeded.
Okay.
You can't give up. Well, but before we close the program, let me say at KPA at the airport needs some urgent attention with regard to helping and to promote the continuation of tourism in Nevis. Simply because I was told that everything doesn't go according to plan from even certain elements within the communities of Nevis. But at the same time, the person who runs the organization is attempting to do her best, but with the help from other corners of society, the airport could be enhanced and traffic would be expanded. So let's all get our hands on deck.
What happened to the master plan? You're talking about the Van Zamre?
Yeah.
There was a master plan recently.
Let's all us put our hands on deck and see if we could help out the arrival with KPA as one of the carriers bringing and taking people from Nevis.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
views and opinions expressed on the preceding program may solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the news broadcasting limited or its advertiser.